Right. I am going to start working on my vampire dragon. It's already got some base coat down. I really want this guy to kind of... This is the new vampire dragon, Lord Vordry. So I really want to try to make him look very wet and gelatinous and just kind of like a corpse that just kind of came up out of the bottom of a lake or something. So just gonna start painting in some kind of what his muscles would look like. Just gonna get down some right out of the bottle reds that I want here. Nothing crazy. That I'm not gonna mix anything crazy right now. So what I'll do is I'll lay down what I want the muscle tissue to look like, and then we'll go back over it to give it kind of a translucent look. Got a clogged paint here, sorry. A little bit of a translucent look. And hopefully that's clear as I go along what I'm doing. Always like to have white on my palette and black. Alright, so I'm just going to start with a little water in here, get a nice consistency going. Get organized. And I'm going to see if I can zoom in here a little bit and we'll get started. So I got a couple layers of base coat down. This is just a few layers of really pale sort of flesh that I worked on. Just to get a basic idea of what I wanted to do for colors. So we're going to start just going right in here. And defining where I want the skin to be. So I'm going to think about where the skin is going to be very, very tight and pulled down close to, like, where the skin is the thinnest. Obviously where it's all bunched up here, it's going to stay pretty light. So you'd have to think of it like if somebody had a sundress on maybe, and it was a little bit see-through, right? So you can see... You want to paint what you can see underneath first. Get some of this down in here. And I'm not really worried about being super detailed yet or careful. I just want to sort of block in where I'm going to be doing this. Definitely going to be in on the shoulder here. Get a little bit down here. It's going to be probably pretty taut skin. A little bit in here. This needs to be a lot darker. It's going to be... Definitely up here is going to have probably pretty tight skin. This will make a lot more sense as I start going back over it. It's like he's pretty bony in a lot of these areas. So I'm not going to go too crazy on those spots, but there's definitely some areas that seem very muscular. Here. The skin is going to be probably really loose. Or, thin, I mean. So very translucent probably here. His skin feels very loose, like it's just going to slough off. Sorry if you can hear my dog chatting in the background. She's very angry at something. Winifred, what are you doing? Why are you being a jerk? Don't be a jerk. Again, this skin here I think is going to be pretty translucent. Maybe not too much down in here. The stomach definitely. Get some of this. That's going to have some bone there. I think I'll leave that alone. Looks bony. Might be a good start here. Get a little bit more under here, and then I'll start texturing some more. Alright. That gives me a basic kind of block out of where my main muscle groups are going to be. Let's make sure that they are nice and opaque. I want these to start off pretty dark, and then we'll lighten it up as we go. Gonna get this brighter color, a little bit of a brighter red. And let's start adding in some lines. These are just going to be just kind of muscle striations. Try to follow the logical grain of the way the striations are going to go. And it doesn't have to be super detailed, just brush strokes, intentional brush strokes are important. Kind of going with the flow of the muscles. Not really going to be a lot of muscle here, but I want that spot to feel pretty see-through here, so. And let's go up to the brighter red, or the brightest that I have out at the moment. And add a little bit of this in here. I'm going to be a little more refined and careful with these brush strokes. And these are going underneath his actual skin tone. So again, you just need the general idea to be there to trick the eye. You can go as detailed as you want, but you're going to lose a lot of it, or I'm going to lose a lot of it when I go back in and paint his actual flesh over top. This is just to give it some depth. Obviously, dragons are not real that we know of, right? So some of these muscle striations are going to be, I mean, all of them are being completely made up. I'm just guessing. If I was doing a human or humanoid figure, I would probably pull up some reference of muscle striations. I have a limited knowledge of it just from medical school, where I got to learn all the anatomy and muscle insertion points, etc. But it's always good to have reference up if you need to check yourself, or you don't trust your memory, or Got that blocked in. So now let's use I'm going to start with this very warm, pale flesh. Basically just a peached up white. And I want this to be very, very thin. It's essentially going to be a wash. I mean, I guess you could call it a glaze. And I'm going to get some on my brush and then roll a large amount of it off my brush to a nice point here. And now I'm going to think about where the skin is going to start to bunch up. Right. I'm going to use very careful, intentional brush strokes. Kind of blending this away from the area where it's the tightest. Even that is not as thin as I want it. So let's thin that paint down a little bit more. Probably gonna, in this area here, I think there's gonna be some skin kind of bunched up in here. So we're gonna kind of load that in there. Definitely want to get my my edges blended down because I want this to feel like it's under the skin. So we're going to try to really blend these edges. So I'm kind of drag dropping my pigment. And what I mean by that, I'll talk about this a lot, is just dragging down and dropping where you want the pigment to be the heaviest. So you start where it's the lightest and then leave it where you want it to be the heaviest. And you just keep doing that until you have a nice smooth transition that you're happy with. You're hiding kind of that intentional line, make it look more organic and natural. And I'll just continue to refine this until it looks how I want it to look. But right now I'm going to kind of hide all those outlines of the muscle that we just did just to start. Kind of like this feathered edge here a little bit maybe, but I don't want you to see all of it. So just hide it. I mean, you literally just act like this paint that you're putting down is his skin. Like you're just building up, you know, he started muscle, now we're just adding his skin over top of the muscle. This area is probably going to be pretty light here. Actually, I don't think I like that there at all. Let's get rid of that. So this is the top of him, so he's going to have a lot of light that kind of reflects off the surface of his skin up here. And you're not going to necessarily lose that just because it's see-through skin, so we'll continue to refine that later after it dries. I'm just going to keep working here and sort of moving, just moving all over while the other pieces dry. Let's keep things moving. And just getting a consistency that I like. So it's got a wound, like a little wound here. So I want that hard edge of that wound. That's going to be pretty thick skin there. Probably thicker than the rest. And we want that nice contrast between the skin and this little wound pocket here. Just blending, just hiding that edge. And I'll also go back in and add in some vessels over top of this even. Just layering up that flesh, because, you know, flesh has so many little nuances, little freckles and dots and so many little things. So the more you add, the more depth that's subtle enough, but it's gonna really help sell that look. But we're just getting in the foundations right now. And I'm not overthinking anything. I'm just kind of moving quickly over where I feel like things are gonna work organically. And just adjust later. So it's already kind of starting to take on that pale, sort of injured flesh. Hey Darthcorn, how you doing? This is the new Prince Vordry model. It's this guy. I'm just trying to do kind of something different with him. I always see a lot of black and purple and red dragons and stuff for these vampires to be riding on, so I thought it might be kind of neat to do something sort of waterlogged and almost like bleached skin. Like all the pigments run out of it because it's just been sitting in the water for so long, and this vampire decided to just resurrect him and use him as his mount, I guess. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Appreciate it. So I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing here, just moving some of this pigment down around the edges. Still have no idea what I'm going to do for his wings. I'll probably have to wait and get more of a composition feel or idea after some more of him is done. So I can get So where his shoulder is here, this deltoid, obviously that skin's going to be pretty tight there. So you're going to almost see right through the skin to that muscle. So I want barely any of his white skin to be there. It's really going to be where the folds and stuff are that you don't see anything underneath, because the skin will be real bunched up, similar to like that sundress I was talking about earlier. If somebody had like a sundress on. Thanks a lot, Darth. I appreciate that. I have another model I did something similar on. I don't know what I did with it, but it was a Medusa that has like a see-through, kind of a see-through dress on, and it was sort of the same concept, just trying to figure out where the dress would lump up and you wouldn't see what's underneath, and then where it would be very, very close to the body and you would see what's underneath. And same thing, his skin here is just the dress. It's just sort of barely hanging on to his muscle. I'm going to cover most of this up. I don't think I like a lot of that up there. Edges need to be blended a little bit more, I think. And I'm going to start getting into some texturing here too, which is going to help sell the skin being pulled over the muscle. Start doing a little bit of that now so you can see kind of what I'm talking about. So we'll go in here. And so since his muscle striations are going down, I think it'd be cool to add a little, kind of go with the flow of the wrinkles down here a little bit. And just do little lines across. There you get a little more spread out as the skin starts to get tighter. Sort of sell that look a little bit. Do a little over here. And this also will help blend those edges in and make it feel like kind of an overall cohesion to things. You could use an airbrush for this too, just kind of lightly fade these lighter skin tones over top of everything. But I do prefer using a brush. Personally, I feel like it gives me a little more control over what I'm doing. Not for this part. This part you can't really airbrush, but for the bulk of the fading and the edges that I was doing a minute ago, you could definitely use an airbrush for that. So I'm starting to get a little bit more of that feel there. I don't know if that is coming through. Hello there, Major Problems. How are you, sir? Thank you for tuning in. Is that you, Evan? So again here, follow the sculpt a little bit, the anatomy of the sculpt. We'll start adding in a little bit, some little skin texture lines. Is it Alpharius or Omegon? I'm Alpharius. What are you doing, man? Just hanging out watching me? I appreciate you. So up here, again, this is the top of his body, so he's probably going to have a lot of light up here. So I'm going to start dropping in a lot of heavy texture up here. You can go heavier with the texture because more of it is going to show up. Kind of go even heavier on the top here and maybe fade that back in a little. Just using some water, just adding more water there. And again, it's real important in the direction of your brush, because that's going to give it that nice smooth transition. You're right, you can see me and I can't see you. I'll probably be playing some Space Marine later, so I'll be contacting you for that, Mr. Evan. And now the areas that are kind of going back into the skin, I really want to have more of that texture too. So again, you know, you have the area here where it's the tightest, right down here. So you're going to see a lot more of that muscle underneath, like it's see-through. And then as it starts to get back into the flesh, you sort of gradiate, fade that flesh down. And then when everything is done, I'll, you know, put kind of like a general sheen of where everything's going to be glistening. And then that will also sort of sell the it's underneath the flesh sort of look. We probably could stream our games. It's not a bad idea. That's like, it's taken me so long to get this set up again. I'd have to research how to stream a game. I'm sure it's pretty easy, since I think that's what Twitch was initially used for. Alright, so here we got some really nice sort of visual cues for what we want to happen. Because you have all these wrinkles going on here where the flesh is really starting to bunch. So I'm going to follow those lines, sort of sketch them out. And then we can start blending that way. Well, thank you, Dart. That's kind of what I want. I want it to look gross and realistic. And then And I'll probably make Vordry himself, the guy that's riding on him. I'll probably make him wearing some kind of red armor. I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna need some more contrast in here somewhere. I need something that's... I don't want the entire piece to just be a big old slab of waterlogged flesh. So I'm gonna have to create some interest somewhere. So on the tail, I'm gonna get away with probably just doing this. Just all the way across. And then I need to blend these edges a lot more. But you can see how pretty straightforward it is. You know, it's pretty intuitive. The whole idea of just sort of building on top of a skeleton. Skeleton up to muscle. And then you just start adding in your flesh and just really, it's like a puzzle, you know, you're just trying to figure out where the skin's going to bunch up. And we'll figure out our lighting and everything later. Kind of want to create the subject first. You know, you're starting with a completely gray piece of plastic, so you need to give it all of its texture and everything first, and then, you know, while thinking about the lighting and thinking about the volume, obviously, how you interpret the shapes that he's made up of. I think I like that so far. Slabby, wet, rotten flesh. Pretty sure I've probably got flagged on Google for looking up some reference of certain things like this. Waterlogged corpses. When I did my Keeper of Secrets, I must have typed in a million different ways to, like, flayed skin, flensed skin, all that stuff. Somebody's got me on a list somewhere in the FBI or whatever. Just cover that up a little. So, yeah, I think I like that so far. Good. I can keep working on that on this side, or I think I want a little more variation in here. So gonna grab some of this. I love Citadel shades and contrasts for kind of right out of the bottle glazes. I just put it right on my palette here, and then you can just manipulate. So obviously the shades are already a lot thinner than the contrast paints are going to be, so they don't need as much thinning down, but I still like them on my palette. It gives you a lot more control than pulling it right out of a bottle. So I just roll my brush around and then just roll it back, kind of offload some of that paint, because we're going to do some fine veining. And I want most of the paint off my brush. Calabino, what's up, man? Calbino. Yeah, this is the new one that I just grabbed. My one that I was panicking about because I thought because he came in a little bit late. But we're all good now. So I think I'm gonna get a little zoom here. we get in a little closer. And do some tiny little veins. Amazing how much more you notice when you're zoomed in. My transitions on the edges are really bad, and I didn't notice till I got down in here a little bit. Oh, I know. It's fine though. I got him. And I don't know what I was rushing for anyways. I had plenty to work on. I was just really excited for this guy. So now that I can actually see what I'm doing with my super zoomers on, get some better transitioning here. It's a little better. I'm gonna grab some white, start punching up some highlights here. Need these. So one way you can visualize where you want your highlights to go is just put water down. So if I cover this in water, all right, now I'm gonna catch the light on it where I like the light to be, which I think I like it kind of right. It's gonna be hard for you guys to see my angle here, but it shows me a really nice highlight line right across here, which is kind of where I was already gonna put it, I think, right here. So now I'll sort of just memorize where that is. Dry my model off a little bit. I lied, I do need these. I should just keep them on my head. I'll get my white. And we're going to do a real fine line with this. Try not to be too crazy, because you can really make it look silly if you go too heavy with your white highlights. So there's a little spot here where there's a wrinkle in the skin. I think a lot of people have a tendency to put washes in the wrinkles, but a lot of wrinkles are going to be very, like, really reflect light. Now, the smoother you make these lines, the more realistic they're going to look. Because water is so smooth the way it tends to fall down. But it also has a tendency to be in little dots. So if you can make very, very, very fine little dots, sometimes it's enough to trick the eye into thinking it's wet. What's up, man? It's a raw chicken. So put another little bit here, because that's where the light's going to sit if he was covered in water. Usually I would do this at the very, very end, after I have all my textures and everything down. But I want to get in some more color breaks in here somewhere, something more interesting going on. I need to decide what I want that to be. So sometimes I can start blocking in some areas that I went over that were primed black and just cleaning them back up. And it can give you kind of an overall picture again of color placement, color breaks, and the overall like silhouette of kind of what you've already worked on. Which is why I'm doing this now. It will help me kind of decide what I want to move to next. And I get bored quick. I can't just keep working on the same spot over and over again. So I'll go back to what I was just working on after I figure out where I want to go next. And this color break could be something I do with these horns, but I just need something else right now. I'm going to add in a lot of muscle and stuff underneath here. Actually, you know what? I think that's going to help. But you can already see just by putting in this black and fixing up these horns, you get more of an idea of what you have going on. I do think I want his horns and maybe even his teeth to be more on the brown, the dark bone side rather than like a bleached bone. I think that might look neat. But he does have a lot of bone popping out, so I'm gonna use, this is kind of my go-to base for all bone, is this pastel green. And I like it because green, I like to use a ton of purples and a ton of reds, and green is an automatic complementary color for that. So it's a way to kind of sneak green in and please the eyeball. And it works really well for bone. So this is bone here. So let's start to get some of these color breaks a little bit. And even though this is subtle, it's still very pale and desaturated and very close to kind of what I already have going on. It's still going to add a nice little break. It's got bone here. It's going to have like sinew attached to it. And this is going to be a lot of that detail that I got to get really down in and kind of just start working on maybe later when I'm not streaming. Because it's going to be very tedious and probably kind of boring. And I already worry that this is boring enough, so But see, this is going to start giving us some nice contrast breaks and add more interest. Like already we have more interest. There's more to look at. It's not just a blob of raw, wet chicken meat like Greg there said. I think that's Greg. It's got some ribs going down in here. I know some people that would probably eat dragon if they were real. Got another bone here. I mean, since we know most dinosaurs came from birds, I think most dragons were inspired by dinosaurs, but wrongfully as reptiles. If most dinosaurs were birds, we could assume that most dragons would have been birds as well. That is my opinion. He's got a lot of cool bone going on here in the tail. But I do think calling him a chicken is probably pretty close, since the chicken is the last remnant of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Pretty depressing. Like, imagine being the T-Rex and like getting a glimpse of what your descendant in the future will be, and it's a chicken. Chickens are pretty cool. Pretty sweet animals. They're very smart. And they form bonds. Sadly, a lot of people think they taste really good. Yeah, so see, we already got a lot of nice, I think, interest popping here just by adding in some of these details. And this helps me move forward with what I want to do on the parts I was already working on, because it starts to bring everything together and helps you make choices. But obviously everybody has their own workflow. I know a lot of people who really find it cathartic to just blend the same spot over and over and over again. I don't know how. I can't do that. I gotta just keep moving on things. But that's also one of my biggest weaknesses, is patience. Because I know if I spent hours on one spot and I just did that over the whole mini and spent a year on one mini, it would probably look pretty cool. And I kind of wish I could do that. But I lose interest very quickly. I get ADD or ADHD or one of those things that makes me get easily distracted. And it causes me to miss spots on my mini. So I'm working on trying to not rush as much. Some of this bone. I already really like the contrast with the green and the red. But I do want it to be a very muted, sort of pale color palette. And then the benefit of that is when it's all finished, I can kind of, when I have everything sort of down and all my colors in, and they're all very muted, I can figure out strategic points on the model, make not as muted, to really kind of catch and move the eye. And hopefully it works. This is a little bone here, I think. Sorry, if you hear my dog barking. That's bone. See, it's just got so many little tidbits on him. I gotta figure out what I want to be what. This looks like bone here. Paint some Rangus on it. I think that's Doc talking to me there. I didn't even know that was you. You snuck in. I'll just keep defining these. So this looks like kind of a muscle sinew here. And thanks to anybody that dropped in and is hanging out. This model is really well sculpted. He's got this cool stomach, like his entire stomach is here with little veins and everything on it. A lot of cool detail in here I can kind of go crazy on. This looks like his windpipe here. That's a bone. That's a bone here. I feel like I'm playing Operation. This whole thing looks like a AV fistula. Depending on who put it in. My buddy Greg is a big into lifting weights as well, so I thought maybe the name Squat Junkie might have been him. Alright, so we got this. So the wings are definitely something I need to figure out. They're going to be a big color break. Just got to figure out what I want to do with them. Let me zoom out so you guys can see here. Gotta even figure out how these go. That's not right. So this one, obviously they're just primed, but I mean, it's a huge part of this model. So I could really do something crazy here on the wings. I might do a lot of, I could just make them all like muscle sinew, but I feel like I've been doing a lot of that lately. But it could definitely work on this guy. Because that's going to give... Could do some purples in there. I don't know. And then he has this base that he sort of hangs out on. I don't even know how he sits on this thing. Somehow like this. I don't know. Need... I don't know how much Greg can squat. I'll have to ask him. I don't think he can squat 500, but I don't know. I don't know if he'll go as deep. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit of this pale skin color to kind of a red violet that I have here. And let's drop in let's start defining some of this intestine that's in here. I will have it have a little bit of gray to it, but I want to get some nice color in here first. And this is when I'll start to kind of bring out the volume a little bit more with my shapes. So this is going to be like a sphere. This is going to be a bone there. That might even be a bone. This is where I kind of will stray away from following the sculpt and think more about my overall shape of what I'm painting and where the light is going to hit, rather than just following where the wash and everything landed. I guess this is where all his Rangus would be, but I think all of it fell out of him when he got gutted. I mean, I guess if a necromancer was like reviving an undead dragon, I wonder if it would come back to life with all of its poop inside of it still. Would it be undead poop at that point? Never really thought about that. These are the details I think people need to think more about. I think I need some... I feel like I need some more greens in here too. Maybe some cool greens. Oh, what event? Is it a weightlifting thing, or is it a model thing? Hmm. I want to use some greens in here, maybe as a little shading. Where the skin is sort of already dead and kind of peeling away from him. guy's going to just be a ton of back and forth, I think, until I have that feel that I'm looking for. Just going to be a lot of playing around. Painting comp. Oh man, I have to check that out. I think I saw some ads for that. It's got like a blood letter on a surfboard, I think, right? So I'm just getting where it's tattered here with some of this green. And then he's got kind of this pulled away flesh here that would probably have quite a bit of fascia and whatnot on it, like sinew. So I'm gonna get this nice brown rose color, and that's a good like meaty, like I use it a lot for like tongues and just kind of a base for anything gummy or internally fleshy. So we'll start painting some of this. Get all that in there. See, he's got all this is like skinned. It's like all pulled away. But he's been dead for a while, so he's not going to have too much blood flow. Well, no blood flow, but I got to try to think about the pigmentation of everything if he's been waterlogged and just sitting at the bottom of a lake. I definitely don't want to lose that feel that I'm going for. So I can't make it too lively fleshy, if that makes sense. Do they have to be painted to compete? And do they have a paint competition? So all the areas where he's got sinew or skin that's peeled away, painted with that, and then I'm going to take a little bit of this color that I have, just water it down. I'm going to make kind of a wash here. And sort of break out my, I forget the word I'm looking for. There's a word for this. The way flesh, like the way the basal layer of the dermis kind of attaches, has these sort of little connections that look like marbling, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. You meat eaters would know the word better than me. It's like if you were to peel a, actually, Doc, are you still in here? If you were to peel a deer, when the flesh disconnects from the muscle, that sort of marbled look that's on the underside of the dermis. I don't know what that's called. One of these days I'll eventually do an actual paint competition, I think. What's the, so the fascia, what's that like, I cannot think of the word I want. hold on, I'll show you after I have it painted in if you're still here. Let me... Like I think I'm thinking of like a bear skin. If somebody were to take a bear skin and then wear it or sell it as a pelt, not the furry side, but the underside has kind of this sort of like this cubed striated meat look with then like some fascia sort of pulled over it. But I don't know what the word is I'm looking for there. Yeah, like kind of, yeah, like a leathery yes, the silver skin, but I don't know if that's the... There's a very specific word. It's fine. I can't think of it. I'm gonna lose my mind. Is it cut when the hide is prepared? Yeah, that's the... Is that all it's called? Is silver skin? But that's exactly what I'm thinking of. It's got kind of that... I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to paint. Guess I could get away with whatever I want anatomically on this guy since he's make-believe. Trappers call it all kinds of stuff. Meat, sinew. Yeah, silver skin is, that definitely, I feel like sounds exactly like what I'm thinking of. So yeah, so I get this sort of pulled silver skin look in here. And then I'll add kind of some pulled sinews and stuff, kind of like I did on my Fulgrim. Let me grab him. So I kind of do something similar as like on here. Like where it's sort of some muscle and then just like a lot of pulled fascia and everything over top of that, like in there. Guys' wings are so fragile. I've tried pinning them and everything and they still keep falling off. Alright, so I'm not really sure yet where I want to go. I'm at kind of a stopping point composition-wise here, so I'm going to have to stare at him for a little while, and I don't want to do that with you guys because that's really boring. So I am going to log off for now. I appreciate all of you guys hanging out and watching. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and I will talk to all of you guys later. See ya.